Hello everyone, this is Garrett and this is Serious Sam 2, and we are going to do the Road to Ursul level 4. And in this level we are going to be fighting a lot more different types of enemies, starting off with pretty much every orc in the game, alongside some tank enemies.
Sam, we must gain control over that landing pad. The Simbas will bring you some useful stuff. Use the turrets.
And we can get inside these turrets over here to start shooting at enemies. There's these big tank dudes. They do a fairly large amount of damage, but they die pretty easily in this turret over here. There's also 4 types of orcs. Like, there's the red ones which shoot grenades. There is the blue ones which shoot a sort of homing projectile. There's the yellow ones which shoot rockets. And there are the green ones which are just sort of your generic run-of-the-mill orcs which just sort of shoot stuff. Now, this level's a bit odd. I quick saved before I shot that airplane at the end. And the reason for that is that shooting that airplane before the enemies have a chance to jump out stops all spawns here, which is a little bit silly, and it's not very good at all. But fortunately, even though this giant, just rocky structure over here is just sort of sitting around, and it's pretty much stopping us with an invisible wall, we can actually just jump past it by just jumping to the side over here. It's a little bit tricky. It might be a little bit easier if you just grab one of the barrels which is nearby, and in fact I'm just gonna do that. And I'll load that quick save in a second, but I just want to point out that this is a thing you can do because it's fun. And yeah, you can just jump past the invisible wall and just proceed through the level as normal. It's really weird that that airship is part of the trigger that lets you do this entire battle over here, but it just is. And like, if I destroy it now, everything would just continue as per normal, but if you destroy it too quickly, it just breaks.
Now keep control until the Simbas arrive.
Alright, so next to those big tank enemies which shoot rather annoying projectiles, we're gonna be fighting some helicopters which shoot rockets. You can shoot the rockets out of the air, and then you just have to focus on killing the helicopter itself. They have a fair amount of health, but any gun will deal substantial damage to them, so they do that pretty easily, and their rockets are not especially scary if you just move around enough. And all you have to do is just be a little bit careful. Also, I'm destroying all of the trees here because there's going to be a bunch of enemies that are going to spawn from there, and they're just a little bit easier to hit if you just destroy all the trees beforehand. Also, I am pretty much going to be focusing down all of the Onanda librarian type enemies because these primitives, I guess they're called, are really, really bad at actually hitting the turret most of the time. So I'd rather just get rid of the enemies which actually hit the turret itself, even though there are 2 turrets, so even if this thing gets destroyed, I can just switch to the right turret. I would rather just kill the ones that actually damage me at all, just to make it a little bit easier on myself. And so I have nothing to worry about. When they do get too close, I do tend to get a little bit scared and just destroy them that way, but you can just pretty much focus down all these guys, because as you can see, I'm pretty much never losing health here. Like, I'm losing maybe 10 health or something every now and then, but they can do a lot more damage if they actually attack me at all. It's really weird. And maybe I'll lose this turret, maybe I won't. I'm honestly not really too bothered about damage in this level because you're gonna get plenty of health as we move through this place. And I think that should be the last of them, really. There we go. Once this cutscene plays, you know you've killed enough enemies, and that guy, that little helicopter over there, he is actually completely indestructible and drops several boxes down. And he also drops a rocket launcher, which is actually pretty useful, but it takes a while for this thing to drop everything it does, and when it has dropped everything, the rocks over there actually break down and show a bunch of enemies.
Pick it up and proceed towards Ursul.
That's just what I need.
And this is where it gets a little bit annoying, because there is a secret area over, like, up there, and doing anything physics-based in this game is pretty horrible. Like, stacking these boxes may be one of the hardest things you have to do in this game, but fortunately it didn't take too long.
Has been found.
Also, you can stack up boxes on those rocks over there, and you can just go out of bounds, but there's really not much to do there, so I'm not gonna bother showing it off, but it's a thing you could do if you're bored. Pretty much every open level has an area where you can go out of bounds. It's pretty silly. Also, it takes a while for those... There we go. That's basically the thing that points out that the enemies are going to spawn soon. But there's a bunch of boxes here, and I'm just going to break open all of them. Most of the sort of silver ones can only be broken with explosions, and I accidentally broke one of the turrets, but that's fine, really. We don't really need it anymore. And I think any second now, those rocks should break. I'd rather just stay here, because it's a little bit easier to do with all the turrets, and there we go. And it spawns a whole bunch of bulls. The bulls look a little bit different than the ones in the previous Serious Sam games. They have sort of clockwork things on their backs. I think they look pretty adorable, to be perfectly honest, but they are still a force to be reckoned with. Just make sure you don't get hit by them, and you'll be absolutely fine. As you can probably imagine, they only have melee attacks. I don't remember if there are any which have cannons on their back, like they had in Serious Sam the Second Encounter, but if they do, then we'll see it when it happens, really. For now, we're just going to focus down these big turrets, and we're going to worry about that big helicopter over there. And we're just going to take them down with the shotgun, because the shotgun does a good enough job of taking care of these guys. It seems that the missiles have kind of a homing effect, the ones that the helicopters shoot, but as long as you just move, then it should be fine. It doesn't look like any of them are really hitting us right now, so we have nothing to worry about. And if you are really scared, you can always just sit in this turret until the thing becomes in range. Like, these turrets are still pretty strong. Even though we destroyed one of them, the other one is still just as good and is perfectly capable of taking care of these guys. And I'm running a little bit low on shotgun ammo here, and I'm just gonna use my shotgun to destroy that last helicopter, and then I'm just gonna go back and pick up everything we got. Also, in the previous level, at the end of it, we got our friend Klodovic, who is a parrot, who is based on some comic series which I've forgotten the name of, and I'm honestly not very familiar with the comic series either, but if you look up like Klodovic, and actually I believe in the comic he was called something else, but basically he's based on a really smart parrot from a comic book, for as far as Google can tell me, so that's kind of neat, I suppose. I'm not much of a comic book person, but if you are, then it's pretty cool. And he just sits in your hand, and you can throw him at enemies, and he is very powerful. The explosions you get from this thing are just phenomenal. And you can only carry like 8 of them. No, I think it's 12 actually, is the maximum. And there's a reason for that. Like, they chase down the enemy. If you throw them right, sometimes they get lost and just fly straight into the sky, but usually they'll try to chase after the enemy. And they do a very good job of just instantly destroying just about anything. I'm just going to use a couple over here in a second because there's going to be some enemies. And it's a little bit easier to take care of them like this. Now, this level is kind of the vehicle level. This is actually one of the few levels where or one of the few battles in this level where we're not going to have a vehicle to take care of the enemies. But that's why you do have to be a little bit careful, but it's also why I'm not really worried about my health. Because for the most part, we're gonna just be in vehicles which have their own health bars while we're fighting these guys, so it's really not much of a problem. Plus, there are a lot of health power-ups, and as long as you just sort of jump left and right, just show them your dukes, then you have nothing to fear. Again, watch out for these red dudes, though, because the red orcs can throw grenades, and the grenades actually hurt quite a bit. They hurt not as much as your explosives, but they hurt about as much as you'd expect an explosive to hurt you, really, and that's a fair amount of health.
Use that ball and let's roll.
Now, there's 2 secret areas. One is over there, one is over there. I'll go back for those once we finished up everything over here, because I want to get rid of all these enemies first. As you can probably imagine, there are quite a lot. Some of them only spawn once you go inside the ball, so it is possible to skip a whole bunch of enemy spawns here. But enough of them spawn to warrant the use of this thing. Plus, this thing is just incredibly powerful. It's kind of fiddly to use if you start jumping, which is why I'm just not jumping at all. But if you stay on the floor, it is just really, really strong, and it just takes care of everything easily, even on serious difficulty. We are just going through everything without any issue at all. Some of the enemies, unfortunately, are smart enough that they start running backwards, but once they start firing, they stand still, and that's the end of them, really. And you can probably just make them go off the cliff as well if you're really sort of bored and want to kill them in an interesting fashion. Also, there are a lot of boxes in here, and those boxes, most of them contain treasure, but there's also a couple which contain like 50 health and armor and stuff like that, so it's definitely worthwhile. Plus, there's a lot of Clodovics, even though they give you just one at the end of the previous level. There's a lot of them just sitting in boxes, so you should be fine. Now, the first, or the second secret area, I suppose, is over here, a Smeal. I don't know if this is a reference to anything, but it wouldn't surprise me like everything in this game is.
Penguin has been found.
And there's a frozen penguin over here. You can't actually really interact with it at all, and if you press F to use, you just close the thing again. That's about it, really. It's a secret area, and it's cute. Who doesn't love a penguin? And the second secret area, after we destroy that thing, health is actually completely filled up right now. There is a health power-up over there. He's jumping around a bit, looking a little bit different than usual.
Secret fake health has been found.
Apparently, he was fake.
My God! He sure had me fooled.
Yeah, I mean, he looked pretty much exactly the same as all the other ones, so it's easy to be surprised by that particular happenstance. But having done all of that, we move forward. I think I'm probably going to ignore most of the crates over here because I think I picked up most of them. And honestly, we should be fine. Well, unless they're, of course, in the path like those ones are. And I'm not going to bother with the treasure either because I don't really care that much about points. And we already have 5 lives and we just quick save all the time anyway, so what do we have to worry about? Absolutely nothing at all.
That Simba is calling you. Go see what he wants.
So that ball, unfortunately, it explodes the moment you fall down here. It starts a checkpoint, and there's a Simba over there that wants my attention. But you can actually just jump back up here, but it's just a giant invisible wall here now, which is, it's a shame, really, because I wouldn't mind going back there, but it would make the following part really easy. So this thing either explodes the moment you get close to it, or the moment you just sort of walk far enough away from it. And my rockets are actually full. I don't think I've actually had that situation before here, but sure. And here are some of the more flagship enemies, the headless kamikazes. In this game, they do sort of have a head in that they have just a large bomb with a face on it, which is a little bit different, but, you know, it gets the point across. You get the general idea what they were going for. And there's still enemies you don't really want to have near you. Fortunately, they're pretty easily dispatched in this game due to the fact that they just die in a single shotgun shot. And after a while, Onan starts appearing. I'm looking behind me every now and then because there's going to be a couple primitives that spawn. There we go. Just sort of halfway during this battle, which is a little bit annoying. But there's only 2 of them that we have to worry about. All the other ones just spawn right in front of us. So a couple of boom booms in that general direction and everything should die very easily. Also, the enemies kill each other as well, because when these guys just sort of throw in your general direction, and as the kamikazes don't have much health, they die very easily. I don't even know what to pick up from these boxes. Most of them have ammo inside them here. But honestly, my health is looking pretty good and my ammo is looking pretty good as well. So I guess I might as well just move forward. And watch out that you don't take damage like that. It's a little bit silly when it happens, but it doesn't matter too much, really. I'm kind of surprised some of the Simbas are actually still alive. Usually they die so very quickly because these guys do have a tendency of just focusing them down. And I guess some of the primitives have spawned behind me again. Oh no, wait, he's still alive. Wow. Look at that little guy. He's doing a very good job surviving for a change. They're not really very useful at all. Ah, that's unfortunate. I would have liked if he stayed alive, but I think if he does stay alive, he just sort of stands still. And while you can push him around and just set him like on top of this particular point over here so you can shoot from down here, most enemies just focus down Simbas the moment they see them, so he wouldn't have lasted very long, but it would have been fun to see him fight a little bit more. So the moment we jump down here and grab this stuff, it spawns a Simba inside a little vehicle. He is nearly dead, and he is sort of tied to an enemy over as well. I'm just going to stand over here because this is roughly where he's going to stop, and then we have access to him, and we can actually push him away. And the reason why this is a really bad idea is because this guy tries to kill him, and he is currently completely indestructible, which is a little bit odd, but now that we killed that little guy, he's no longer indestructible. I don't know why he's indestructible, but he just is. It's very silly. And you can actually do this entire battle and beat the level without ever killing that enemy. Like, you can just keep him invulnerable forever if you just push that Simba in the corner and then just start shooting him, because then he'll just start shooting at you and then he'll just follow you around and just forget that Simba ever existed. Because I think the enemies usually only focus down the Simbas that actually shoot at the enemy. And that guy doesn't have a weapon. He just drives this car here, and then he's just like, well, time for me to die, I suppose. But he has to die because it makes everything a lot easier. Now, there's a couple planes that are flying over here that are shooting bombs. And you can actually destroy them. I'm not going to bother with it too much, but once you destroy them, they will not come back again. So it is sort of worthwhile to do it. Especially since this vehicle over here, it can shoot really quick, and it also has sort of a weird homing shot as well. So it's not actually very hard to shoot those planes, even though they're going really fast. And homing shot is kind of a loose term in this regard, because they only really home when they're kind of close to the thing you're trying to hit, but it is pretty easy to hit them, in my opinion. As long as you just shoot in their general direction, you should be fine. So as long as you just move around and just try to avoid the projectiles here, you won't take much damage at all. It's pretty much possible to do this entire area without taking any damage if you're good enough, but I like to be a little bit reckless. It's a little bit more fun to me, and you have plenty of health with this thing anyway. You have like 500 health the moment you get into this vehicle, and it's just good enough, really. And after a while, these big spiders spawn. Now, people who have played the previous Serious Sam games, these guys are actually kind of similar to the lava enemies, the way they attack. So the moment they attack, you basically have to move in the opposite direction. And then you'll virtually always avoid their shots. Unfortunately, after a while, there's going to be a lot of these guys. There's going to be about 5 at the same time. And I'm going to kill that one. And after that, I'm going to turn around and kill the ones that just spawn behind me. You can actually just run into enemies with this vehicle, and it'll damage them, but I think it'll damage you as well. And that's what I'm just a little bit worried about while doing that, and I'd rather not. And if you're really worried, there's a couple things you can do. Like, you can just use a serious bomb from the previous level. You can also stand over here. It's a little bit safer because the enemies usually don't have a very good idea of what to do when you're just sort of standing over here. And they just tend to get a little bit confused. Sometimes their melee attacks won't even work anymore, which is very nice. But fortunately, we shouldn't be in too much trouble. Their splash damage is pretty high, so you have to be a little bit careful. But overall, these guys shouldn't pose any real threat as long as you just manage to take care of the ones that spawn at the same time. Like, the 5 that spawn at once are definitely your main threat in this particular battle. But after you've taken care of those, there is really nothing more to worry about. Even though my health is at 61 right now, I'm actually not worried at all that we're going to get through this.
Ain't nobody more serious than you, Sam.
I eat resistance for breakfast.
And after that, there is one thing you can do as well during this battle to make it even easier, just to make it as easy as possible, really, which is you just sort of hit the corner over here, and then you can just go back here again. And the enemies are not actually capable of getting back up here, so you can't just sort of sit here and just sort of jump and shoot like this. And the reason that works is because of the little homing thing it does. And also when this thing flips over, you get thrown out, unfortunately, but because of the little homing thing it does, it works phenomenally well. It's a really effective weapon because you will be able to hit the enemies while the enemies won't be able to hit you. And it's kind of an easy way to cheese the battle a bit, but we got through it in the end. We have a small amount of health, but we're going to lose this vehicle anyway the moment we exit the level. And let's go. And there you go. That was the road to Ursul. And that was the end of this video. So I hope you enjoyed it so far. And the next time we play, we are going to do level 5. And I've forgotten the name of that level, but I'm sure it'll show up in the video title for the next video. Bye-bye.